Let's imagine that you're someone from the past who's discovered something new. And let's say that you've discovered how to create fire. And you're the first one. You were walking in the woods one day, and you kicked a few pieces of flint rock into a bed of dry leaves. The rocks cast some sparks, and after a little investigation, there it is, something new. And if you were raised in a harmonious society, it just comes naturally to you to share it. You don't question whether to share it. You're just excited. You're bursting with this new awareness, and it's just natural to talk about it. So you share this new thing with anyone who wants to listen. And then they share it with their friends, and their families, and their neighbors. Understanding fire changes people's lives in so many ways that it's hard for a modern person to even wrap their mind around it. Once people understand how to create fire, they can cook things, which means there's more variety in their diet. There's less scarcity. Food is easier to come by. And this means more harmony. And fire can keep people warm in harsh climates, so this increases the amount of places they can live. Fire can also fend off predators, and this changes their relationship with their environment. Suddenly, they can see what's out there in the darkness at night. And this light in the darkness is like a signal to other people. And the signal is saying, look over here, it's something new. We can create fire. And after enough time, it just becomes part of what it means to be a person. People know how to create fire. It's universal. There's something pretty symbolic about fire. It's really just a plasma reaction. It's like the sun brought down to Earth. And the sun is what makes all of this possible. Without stars, there's just darkness. No heat, no light, no energy, no life. So once humans can control fire, they can harness this thing that helped create them. Now it's like they are made in the image of their creator. But this discovery has consequences. Anytime you build a fire, you immediately create a dark shadow behind you. And it's a shadow of your own making. This isn't a problem in itself. It's completely natural. Of course it creates a shadow behind you. If you grow up harmonious, you understand how light works to some extent. Your shadow may have confused you when you were little, but once you understand how it works, it just fades into the background. Your shadow is just a part of what you are. You integrate it into your understanding of yourself and the world. Human beings have a few things in common. And this is one of the most basic things, that people have ideas. They can discover certain truths about themselves and the world around them. And these new things can be shared with others. And in this story, fire represents any new idea. There's the idea itself, the fire. Then there's the person who first conceives of it. And then there's the shadow the idea casts of the person, which is really just nothing. It's an absence of the fire's light in relation to the nature of the object. And in ideal conditions, it produces something like a shaman, someone who's transparent, someone who can teach another person how to create fire with all of its wonder and its danger. But what happens when this person who discovers something new is a little bitter towards the world? Maybe this person is lacking something. People who are lacking something tend to be pretty irritable. Maybe it's a lack of food or clean water. Or maybe it's a lack of information or understanding. Whatever it is, people have their reasons for being bitter. They might not be good reasons. They might not be justifiable, but they still have them. In some backwards way, they think they are bringing more harmony with their tyranny. And let's say someone like this discovers something new. Maybe they would still share this new thing with others in an attempt to fix the imbalance in their community. But given enough time, eventually someone who discovers something new might decide not to share the truth. They might decide to just keep this new knowledge to themselves. Someone who knows something that others don't know can act as a magician for them. They can perform tricks for people. A person who actually understands fire could accomplish things that seem like miracles. Anyone acting as a magician knows the truth, and they could use the truth as a weapon. After all, in nature, fire is like an act of God. And this magician might think that they have good reasons to hide the truth, because as we know, new ideas can be dangerous if you don't fully understand them. Sure, fire can save your life, but it can also kill you and burn down your whole village in the process. And if you're the magician, you know about the dangers of fire, and this can give you an air of superiority. You know the truth about this thing that other people can't even imagine, and this can make you think that you're better than everyone else. You might start to believe your own story, that you're hiding the truth to protect people from themselves. But eventually, people might still discover the truth on their own. And once they realize the truth, they would seek to expose you. You'd have to maintain pretty strict control if you wanted to keep the truth hidden. One of the things that might occur to you to do is to try to distract people, polarize them, get them to only act on their emotions, and to believe that all of their thoughts are their own. You could even go as far as altering the language, making it difficult for people to actually think, let alone communicate with others. If you can keep everyone fighting amongst themselves about what the shared story is, you can maintain your position at the top. Encourage people to live in an adolescent state. Don't break free of the cocoon. Just enjoy your life and have fun. And don't question things. You'd want to make questioning things dangerous. With a magician at the top of the deck, the natural self-correcting mechanisms of human society become inverted. If it goes on for long enough, it just becomes a tradition. The majority of the population believes the trick, and these people are pretty orderly. Let's call them traditionalists. They're not that interested in the unknown. They're more comfortable with what they know, so they don't step out of line. They treat the magician's word as if it's sacred, as if it's the truth. And as long as average orderly people can maintain some amount of harmony in their lives, they'll just go along with it. But given enough time and enough people, someone shows up at some point who questions things. These people tend to have a certain temperament. They're more inquisitive. They require reasons to believe what they believe. They won't just simply take other people's word for it. They have to discover it for themselves. And let's call these people futurists. They thrive on going out into the unknown. They're naturally driven to try to fix any imbalance they discover within the system. So there's this majority of people who just go along with the system, who are more orderly. And then there's a minority of people who question things, who are more chaotic. These futurists are chaotic in the sense that they're probing the unknown. They're unpredictable, but they're also more open to new ideas. And because a magician is running things, new ideas can't be tolerated. And that means chaotic people can't be tolerated. And even some of the old ideas can't be tolerated either, because some of them might contradict the story they're trying to tell. So then the spectrum of orderly people who will be fooled by the magician's trick starts to get smaller. More and more people are considered chaotic, and the magician needs to push further and further to make their story believable. Some of these naturally more chaotic people can be convinced to question things that are irrelevant to the true nature of the problem. They can be sidetracked into a black hole that just leads nowhere. If that doesn't work, they can be ridiculed into irrelevance, or they can just be removed. This magician system is essentially a collectivist one. Their authority is vested in their power to perform their tricks and domesticate the people, like the shepherd and their sheep. The individual is irrelevant. The magician's power over the population is the only thing that is relevant. In a system like this, anyone acting as a magician has a pretty serious advantage. This is because the magician has no limits. Your average person has limits to what they'll do. They won't lie or steal or kill. And this means that anyone acting as the magician actually has an evolutionary advantage. Because they have no limits, they are able to permanently cement themselves at the pinnacle. And this power has a way of aggregating, where eventually the only people that exist up here are the corrupt. As long as a system like this is insulated, the magician can maintain their power. In order to keep the system insulated, people on the outskirts need to continuously be brought into the group. This means that their territory is constantly expanding. And this is a problem because the expansion means that eventually the magician's power is based somewhere far away. Once there's enough distance between them and the people have a chance to discover the truth. They can see with their own eyes that without the magician, living beings naturally exist in a free state. It's a way of saying that people have certain rights that are just ours. Nobody gives them to us. They just exist. And if we don't have them, it's because someone else has taken them. It's like saying that these rights are given to us by God, the creator of the universe, whatever the universe is. And that anyone who interferes with these rights needs to show just cause. It's another way of saying that the individual is sacred. This idea seems obvious once you're aware of it. And at this point in the story, it's a new idea. This idea is, by its nature, revolutionary. And since the magicians and their minions won't give up their power willingly, people might have to fight to protect it. The people who adopt this idea would be making a sort of declaration, declaring the creation of a new system that helps to protect this idea as a sort of binding principle. The people forming this new system would want to be careful about how they constructed it, so they'd make it really difficult to change. It would need to be constructed in a way that is natural, in the sense that it obeys certain fundamental laws of the universe. This means that the new system could self-organize within this structure designed to protect it. You'd need a branch that acts in the world, the one that actually enforces the protection of this idea. Then you'd have another branch that behaves like the mind. It would think up new ways to help protect this thing in the center. And just like our minds, it would be wise if this branch could reflect itself, so it could turn an idea over and over again and check it for errors. Then you'd want another branch that judges whether or not any of the new rules within the system are in accordance with the shared story. So you'd have the shared story at the center of this new system, and 3 branches to protect it. So let's imagine a scenario where individual rights are paramount. They are the reason for the new system's existence. It's the justification. And over time, this realization fades into the past. This thing that was once a new idea has become old. And eventually, those who accept it as the truth only do so because that's the tradition. And maybe also because they're less inclined to question things. But this means that there's something missing. Because of the threat of corruption, they'll need some people who are comfortable enough to question things. In the magician system, people who questioned things had to either be co-opted or removed. But now, after this revolution, they're free to be who they are. If everyone sticks to the shared story and no errors creep in, it produces something that has the potential of achieving harmony. But because it's composed of people, and people are imperfect, the system itself is imperfect. And there's also another problem. This new system isn't completely insulated. There's a whole world out there that was left behind. And this old world is filled with magicians. And some of them are angry. They're angry because people have discovered that they don't need them. and that they can govern themselves. So what might these magicians do? If they were smart, they'd come up with a plan. After all, they understand how reality really works. And they also understand how this new system works. They know that if the traditionalists can be corrupted, then the system itself becomes corrupted. Then it would become easier and easier to convince the futurists that the traditions themselves are the problem. But what if the traditionalists had already been corrupted? What if the people who built the traditions in the past weren't actually living up to their most basic principle, that the individual is sacred? What if they had magicians in their midst? You might think, because of how this new system works, that over time, people could fight, pushing the system to live up to that idea, shining a light on the corrupt, and the system could adapt. But you'd be ignoring a potentially fatal problem. The magicians would know about all of this. They would know about this struggle. The magicians would flood this new system and try to return the people to a state where the truth is dictated from the top down by them, where the people can't trust their own judgment, where the authority is vested in the collective itself. These magicians know that if enough traditionalists become corrupted, the system begins to swing off balance. And naturally, more and more futurists are produced in order to self-correct. And because, by their nature, these futurists are more comfortable with new ideas, their ideas begin to drift further and further from the shared story. And the story is slowly changed from one where the individual is sacred, where the individual is the fundamental unit of measurement, to one where the collective is, one where the collective has become the root, where the shared story begins to exclude people, where speaking the truth becomes a revolutionary act. The only way for a free society to exist is when people can come together around a shared story. If they can do that, they don't have to compromise. They can just focus on what they agree on, protecting individual rights. This is what can unite them. It's the realization that the traditions of the past are what allowed people to strive for freedom, and that this notion of freedom was once simply just a new idea, put forth by rebels, people dreaming of a better future. Each side would see that they each contain the other within them. They're not necessarily opposed. They're just different. And this difference is as natural as day and night. A shared story can unite us in our differences. It's an old idea, rescued from the depths and become new. We are born free. We each have a dark side, and malevolence exists. We are all unique, and we are all different. But we can unite around one common cause.